Tim couldn't make it to the end, so we're going to... oh, you're going to speak? Great, thanks.
Yeah, I'll just touch on a bit of what we're doing on the First Nation side. So in addition to some of the items that Rebecca just outlined, at our community levels, at the individual First Nation levels, we're still going to continue on with some of our pre-planning and planning efforts. We're going to continue to work on our local knowledge or our traditional ecological knowledge studies, the development of goals and objectives that come right from these communities that address a full suite of issues, but tie into the ecological integrity and ecosystem function that's vital, that address some of the human well-being issues around how do we maintain or develop sustainable economies so our people continue to live within their villages and within their own communities without having to move away to make a living. And intertwined amongst all of that is the cultural integrity. It's very important, and we've heard a lot about that over the course of the last 2 days, about the culture and why it's important to us. And you know, if you read different studies or see different documentaries on TV, they're two of the more easily identifiable characteristics of cultures are language and diet. And diet relates directly to our ability to go out and harvest and continue on in the practices that we've all learned about in our own communities and our own territories. So that's vitally important. We will also be moving farther along. More of a mid to long-range goal is looking at different tools to help us in development of our plans. Once we get the goals and objectives set, you know, we'll be looking at different spatial planning tools. We'll be looking at some of the different modeling exercises and analytical work that you probably heard in the last session that I wasn't here to listen into, but I'm assuming there was some good stuff said there. And that's about it. And you know, we'll continue our participation at the steering committee and secretariat level, being involved with our partners in the federal government at a lot of the issues and a lot of the work that Rebecca just laid out. So thank you very much. Just wanted to leave you with that quick update.
Now, do others on the panel want to add to that? I think you wanted to say something. Please.
Thank you. Just talking from a Haida perspective, and you heard me talk about it early in the game here, was on Haida constitutionally, I'm constitutionally bound to foster good relationships with our neighbors, that fellow people that live on Haida with us. And that's easily said, and but to actually do it is a challenge, But it's a challenge that we need to take on. We have protocols with our neighbors. We talk on a lot of different fronts, But as I said earlier, the communities on Haida supported our land use vision, and they were part of that table of constructing a Haida land use plan. And in the end, in a brief 10 seconds, I guess, after 18 months, almost 2 years of going through a land use planning process, only 3 people didn't stand to support the Haida land use vision, and that was from industry. And but it's important that people see themselves in these processes. But what we bring to the table on Haida is one is our constitution, but also how do we use the table of tools to get to a common goal with the reality of different political views, different interests, and all of the above, And big part of that is communication, and communication that is also measured by action, and that's an ongoing process. But in our world and of Haida those conversations and those things are developing as we speak, but I sincerely believe we're on the right path in how we go to look after our resources and also how we use the resources in terms of the economics, because any society, constitutionally, I'm bound to develop an independent sovereign nation. But does independence, to what degree? But sovereign is a word that we could define, but also keeping in mind that we have other people that are amongst us now, and last I checked anyways, we're not going to build a Mayflower. So we got to move forward with this stuff. And but as we move forward, I see this as the first step in moving this forward, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Hawa.
Thank you.
Just on that same vein, for some information for you, that on the Central Coast, there are 2 First Nations that are in the treaty process and moving forward on that area, and 2 that are not in the treaty process directly, and those 4 nations will have their voice heard through this process. It's a diverse thoughts and ideas coming from the 4 nations that will be brought through this process, whether it's through me or through some other appointed person to represent the Central Coast. And hopefully we'll be able to provide some significant changes to people that make laws and policies that affect their rights and title. It is extremely important that is up forefront, and to let you know as stakeholders, non-government, government, and the ordinary, I guess the term that one of the politicians in the United States said last year, and I guess he got a bit of a flack for it, was Joe the plumber. Basically saying, Joe Citizen, will have an opportunity to have their voice heard through this process. Because we know on this side of the table, as First Nations, we've been ignored and put aside for too long. We know what it feels like to be ignored and shunted. And that cannot continue. And that will not continue. Thank you. Diana Kitsi.